Hello, everybody. Second episode of Shmoozin with Rabbi Aaron. I am really excited to be here with you, and also after a month with many repercussions about the last episode that was really unbelievable. And today is a special day. Today is September 11th. That is 25th anniversary since what happened in New York on 9/11. And for this special episode, I have the privilege to have three guests that they are unbelievable person. The first one is a very good friend of mine, firefighter Jason Lovitz, that you are going to see an interview that we did last week because he's now in some things that he needed to attend. And the first part that we are going to have, I have the huge privilege to have two guests that are, how can I say? The first one, he's in Córdoba in Argentina. So today we are international. Rabbi Marcelo Polakov, he was and he is my teacher. So I hope that Rabbi Polakov, if I will make some mistake, please don't tell to the people alive that I am making mistakes, right? Because if not, it's not going to be really good. And Rabbi Polakov, he's a rabbi at Centro Unión Israelita de Córdoba since 2002. It's right, that, Polakov? Yes.
It's right.
And he received his BA in International Relations at the University of Belgrano in Buenos Aires. And he have his MA in Jewish Studies at JTS. And also he studied at Melton in Jerusalem. And he received his rabbinical ordination at Mahon Shechter in Jerusalem, the same place where we studied to be rabbis. And also he's a huge leader at the community in Argentina and around the world. He was past former president for the Rabbinical Assembly in Latin America. And now, Rabbi Polakov, correct me if I am wrong, you are a co-president of Comipas?
Yeah, that's a kind of committee on interreligious committee for peace. That's the name, and we are the basis of Religions for Peace International in Argentina, and it's a kind of place that we enjoy a lot. Yesterday I was in my synagogue together with the imam of the city and the archbishop, and also evangelical staff, and it's for us it's very common, for example, to have the Muslim praying in our synagogue and to make Seudot Shabbat in the mosque.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a kind of thing that I know that it sounds not so real, but it's real. And luckily, the Muslim, especially the Muslim in our country, are cozy people and not extremists, and we can share together our common basis and at the same time our differences, but in a smooth way.
Great, thank you. And also, Rabbi Polakov was a very important person on all the process at the AMIA and how to help the people, and he was very close to Nisman, that was the, how can I call it, how do we call it, the role of Nisman in English? Do you know how to say that?
Prosecutor
of the AMIA, so he was really very close. And the second one is Rabbi Yoni Warren, that he is, even we are colleagues. We studied together in Israel, and if I am doing some mistakes, that means that we have half responsibility on that. But despite the joke, Rabbi Warren, he's a commander and Jewish chaplain at the U.S. Navy. He has his BA at the University of Maryland and rabbinical ordination and MA at Jewish Theological Seminary. He was global deployments in Okinawa, Annapolis, and deployments over the seas. And as a naval religious leadership, he led high holidays services aboard 4 Navy vessels and in Afghanistan.
Not in Afghanistan, just to clarify. No naval vessels in Afghanistan.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
Landlocked country.
Okay, perfect. So he returned and safeguarded the USS Truman Tora, right?
I have a tour report. I'm with the Truman now. So yeah, we're pretty busy over there doing Truman-y things. So we're in the news a lot.
Okay. So after introducing them, we have a very, very special show for today because we are going to talk about 3 very important dates on the calendar for the entire world. It's not only talking about Judaism. The first one is the AMIA, July 18th, 1994 in Argentina, in Buenos Aires. 85 people die in a huge bomb attack. The second one was September 11 here in New York, where more than 3,000 people died at this event. And the last one, as you know, 2 years ago, almost 2 years ago, in Israel, 1,200 people died and 40 hostages. Hamas took 240 hostages and are still held 48 in Gaza. So we are going to talk about all these things. So Rabbi Warren, can I ask you, my first question is, let's start with September 11.
Yeah.
Where were you on that day, and what do you remember feeling as both as a Jew and a possible Navy?
I was far from being a Navy chaplain at that point. I was at the University of Maryland at the time. I was a first-year student. I just started. I think we started our first week of classes the week before that, and for me, it was just I was awakened to the sounds of AOL Instant Messenger bling bling blings going off because. Again, as a college student, what was I? There's no reason for me to be awake at 8:45 in the morning.
Yeah,
passed out, sound asleep, and all the people, go turn on TV, and have a TV in my room. Went down the hall, and it was the first time I really walked into a space where people were broken. Like you could feel people like, oh my God, what's happening? And then as we watched the first buildings go down. It was a significant weight. Living in the DC area immediately afterwards, it hit even closer as one of the missing people in the Pentagon. Often not talked about it in the same kind of way as the World Trade Centers for that day, but Pentagon's right down the street. And I spent my high holidays that year with a friend of mine in Bethesda, and we were very cognizant of Darren Pontel, who was a intelligence officer who was actually close friends with a cousin of mine who was a Jewish guy who was killed that day, and they found his body on Rosh Hashanah. And for me, Rosh Hashanah is all more than September 11th. Is that connection? Is that like there was we still had like this little bit of hope, this little bit of something. And then they found him and he was dead. And so it connects in a very viscerally Jewish way to me. And I don't know. I don't know if I have the same connection to my Navy-ness that goes to it. But because Darren was in the Navy, because I was connected with his sister-in-law, Stephanie, through USY, through my Jewish youth group. Because of all these little itty bitty things, a part of me is like, I need to join. I need to calm down. I need to breathe. I need to finish college. But it does hold a still spot for me. It holds a spot every Rosh Hashanah, every Yom Kippur. I still connect immediately to Darren Pontel. Every Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, every time we get to the September 11th, I still connect to the actions of unity that came out of 9/11. Both the response and the anger and all of those things, I still feel. I don't let them overcome me. I don't let them, but I still recognize that they're very much parts of me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Rabbi Polakov, let me ask you about the AMIA. You were really very involved at the AMIA, and how the AMIA bombing in 1994 was turning point in Argentina. What are your memories that do you carry from that day, and if aftermath, and both personally and the Jewish community? What do you remember from that day, and how the community lived this moment?
Well, actually, I was working for the AMIA in that period. I was part of the youth department of AMIA. I didn't go in a regular way. I mean, I went there to the building twice a week. But on that very day, I was sent by the AMIA as a delegate for a Jewish European Congress on Education. So I was in Holland, and while I was coming back to Argentina, and I was in the scale in Madrid, just in the airport, we realized that something happened at the AMIA building. There was no cellular phone on that age, and I remember I was at the plane 11 hours from Madrid to Buenos Aires, thinking about my friends in AMIA, and also my wife, because she studied there two blocks away, and she always, every day, passed by walking there. So when I came to the airport at the night of the same day, the 18th of July 1994, I went from the airport to what remained, that was just nothing of the building. And that week after the bombing, I wasn't a rabbi still. I was, we call it seminarista, kind of a future rabbi. And we managed to, I don't know how to say, to organize something. And my task was to go with the families to the morgue in order to recognize their beloved. And that was, I remember, when I remember that, well, that was maybe the hardest week of my whole life, because it was, as you can imagine, very, very sad. What is more sad is that 20 years later, I didn't come back to that morgue because I moved to Córdoba from Buenos Aires. And 20 years later, I was at the same morgue with the family of the prosecutor Nisman, doing the same, joining them to recognize the rest of Alberto Nisman, of the prosecutor, because of the same situation, because the AMIA bombing still had consequences 20 years later. And that's outrageous, and that's even unbelievable, because the lack of justice, it's different what happened in the States with the 9/11, because in Argentina, no one is culprit, and no one is in jail, and until now, we are not sure about who was and who put the bombing car and the bombing van in that street, killing 85 people, what is almost like a macabre joke, is that during 10 years, the number of the victims was 86. This is a really ridiculous story, but 10 years after the bombing of the AMIA, they found one victim, which was very alive in Paraguay, working with the money that the family received from the government because he was one of the victims. So with this little example, you can see what was that it was not only terrible, the bombing in itself, but what happened after that, with the lack of justice and with the corruption of the investigation and the assassination of the prosecutor and all that stuff that we still don't have answers. And that's a pity.
Okay. Let me ask you a question to both of you, because the timing here is it's really cruel that we don't have enough time. But let me ask you a question. As a rabbi, what was your role at this moment, or even you was not a rabbi, but let's say after the things that happened in Israel, October 7, and how we can deal with our communities, and how do you think about the way that also in Buenos Aires, also in New York, also in Israel, how the resilience came and how they rebuild the society? As a rabbi, what is the role on all of that?
I went first last time. It's up to you.
Okay. Well, actually, on October 7, we at my own institution, my own congregation, we have a school of 500 students, a Jewish school, a Jewish day school. And on that year, on October, 3 days before that, we sent a group of 25 students, 15 and 16 years old, to Israel. So you can imagine they couldn't, at the third day of the trip, they were stuck in Israel and they couldn't come out. So it was not only the big story of what happened on the 7th of October for myself, and for myself as a rabbi, but it was a very personal story because we had more than 20 students, 16 years old, almost without not knowing what will happen, and they couldn't escape from the country because there was no flight. So that was a really hard week for us and for me as a rabbi, because at the same time we had communication with the students and with the families here in my city, and not only we were suffering what was happening in Israel in general, but we were suffering the consequences of not knowing. Now we can remember that, but at the very moment we didn't know what was going to happen, and it was really dangerous. And that feeling of fear, feeling of awe, feeling of not knowing and lack of certainty, it's I think that it joined us for maybe these 2 last years, and we know the recipe. Even when tragic things happen around, we have to stick on the mitzvot and stick on the good deeds and maasim tovim. And at the same time that we say this, we try to do this. And it's the best recipe, I think, for fighting these horrible times. There are people that deal with this in other ways, but I think that we as rabbis, we have to strengthen the mitzvot and the study and the maasim tovim, because that's the best way to fight periods of tragic things that are happening now, for example.
Okay, thank you. Yoni?
So with my community, we're much more spread out, right? You have 2 or 3 people on a ship, 2 or 3 Jews who are on the ship or in the Marines, and they're not close to each other. So creating space to bring people together, especially when they're feeling so alone, they're feeling that they're experiencing this all by themselves, to let them know that they're not by themselves. And then carrying on, as Rabbi Marcelo also put out, it's about not just reacting and being vengeful, but connecting to those greater virtues, connecting to those experiences that we hold as sacred, and saying we are feeling pain, but we are also feeling Jewish. We're connecting to God. We're connecting to higher. We're connecting to the best versions of ourselves, so that when we do trudge forward, when we do carry forward, we're going to do something b'kedusha. We're going to do something with holiness, not that we're going to go fight in holiness, but that we're going to carry ourselves in holiness, that we're going to rebuild this space, that we're going to honor those who died in a way that is holy, better, honorable, and true.
Great. And let me ask you the last question to both of you. We are very close to the high holidays. It's like 1 week. We are from the high holidays.
I'll say that.
It's like 10 days. If you need to leave here a message for the new generations and for the generation who were there and who live all these things, what are you going to tell to them?
I think we're already in that new gen. In the Navy, we're talking about the average sailor enters at 18 years old, 18 to 20 years old. Well, if the average sailor is entering at 18 to 20 years old, they weren't alive for 9/11. And to carry on, what is it? And we've been carrying on some of that legacy. I mean, we just left Afghanistan 4 years ago, I guess, 2021. And so some of that is just carried on. We carry on some of the weight, but for me, I always will talk about the minutes afterwards when we said, we're going to be united in trying to and holding on to each other. When I talk about even some of the things that have happened since then, whether it's in Israel or when it's talk about the United States of shared traumas, what makes us resilient is the way that we walk out of those traumas, is the way that we hold to the people who went through them with us. There is no reason that that 9/11 should have happened. There's no reason that October 7th should have happened. But we as humans, we as Jews, have still an obligation to respond to them. And for us, that's the most sacred thing ever, right? What is it that we do in Kaddish? Forget everyone saying Kaddish. It's the responding to the people who mourn. That's what Kaddish is all about.
Yeah.
It's why we have a minyan. We say we need to come together as a community to respond to people who are in mourning. And that's the most sacred thing that Jews can do is say Yehei Shmei Rabbah Mevorach Le'olam Me'omayach. And so for us, for 9/11, for all these, it's all about responding in righteousness.
Yeah. Marce?
Well, it's like the Psalm says, even when I walk through the valley of death, we are not alone, as Warren said. At the same time, the easiest way to respond to tragic things is the worst way of respond, because in these times, where the hate speech and the fast answer is always a generalization, and all the Muslims are terrorists, all the Arabs are I don't know what, or the civilians in Gaza are part of Hamas. And I think that all those phrases and thoughts are really dangerous in times of travel, especially in times of travel. Those are the moments that we need to stop and not to react immediately, and to filter our emotions here with the tefillin, with the Torah, and not letting those hard emotions conduct our deeds, because it's very dangerous, and bad things are also contagious. So I hope that this Rosh Hashanah we could feel again judged by God, and at the same time react with the word Shubat Filaut Tzedakah, as Uletani Tokef says and teaches us. And I think that we should do that.
Thank you very much, Rabbi Warren, Rabbi Polakov. It really was a pleasure to have you here. I really like to have more time to discuss many other things, but we have only 1 hour of a show. So thank you to you both for this moment. And now we are going to see a video that Cantor Alberto, that is coming next week for the high holidays. He's singing the Misheberach for the Cholim. Like, we like to pray together to give to the all people around the world the hope, to wish to them that everybody could be healthy, and with that we can find the peace in the world. Again, Marcelo Polakov from Córdoba, thank you very much. Shana Tova Umetuka, my best wishes to you and to your community. Rabbi Warren, the same to you. It's a pleasure to have you here, and thank you very, very much. And also for your Marines, are you saying, or to sailors?
That's everyone. Why not?
Shana Tova Umetuka, thank you very, very much.
Absolutely. And to your community also, Shana Tova Umetuka. Should be a good day for you.
We are here to another section of Schmoozin with Rabbi Aaron. We are recording this part of the episode here at the JCC in a very special place that is the survivor place talking about the Shoah. Because we are with a very important person here that he, because of all his work, he needs to work on our time for the Shmoozin with Rabbi Aaron. So let me introduce this guy. So how should I introduce you? Like a former president of Temple Manual, as a fighter, as a volunteer in Israel, or simply as Jason Lovitz, my friend?
So I like the last one the best. But I need to clarify, you said as a fighter, it's as a firefighter. So
Firefighter.
yeah, a little bit of a difference there.
Okay. Okay.
But your friend is the one that means the most to me out of all those. So.
Yeah. So great. So Jason, let me tell you that we have a really very special relation because we are thinking like the same, right?
Absolutely.
So I, somebody told me this week that we are like an explosive combination of thoughts. So yes, I am very happy. So do you remember our very first interaction when I was hired as a rabbi?
I do. Before you were hired as a rabbi, your interview.
Okay,
I remember
tell me about that.
I remember sitting through the beginning part of the interview because the interview committee or the hiring committee had recommended that we interview you. And about the first half hour of it, I'm scratching my head saying, why the heck am I sitting here? This is such a waste of time. This guy, doesn't speak English. And then all of a sudden, do you remember you started telling us about Yom Kippur? And because it was...
And the crazy idea of the drive-in.
It was during COVID, and you had Yom Kippur at the drive-in, and all of a sudden you forgot that you were speaking English. Mm-hmm. And because you forgot you were speaking English, your English was almost perfect. and right through the Zoom screen, which is almost impossible to do, like I could figure out exactly who you were. Your energy just came flying through the screen. And that's when I realized that this is the reason that they brought you to the interview. So
great thing. I really remember this moment that was I was extremely nervous, and let me tell you that.
So were we.
I don't know. So Jason, as a firefighter, it's like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's the most unusual or funny thing you have ever had to rescue?
That I've ever had to rescue? I don't know that there's I'm trying to think now. Of course, you put me on the spot, so you wouldn't give me the questions ahead of time like I'd asked, but so it's funny. I'm actually going to refer to my trip to Israel as a firefighter. So here in the States, I'm a firefighter paramedic, so I'm used to doing medical stuff. Up there, not so much. It's the EMTs and paramedics are here, and the firefighters are here, and they don't really interact. But we went on a call because we had to help them get into an apartment, and because they thought that somebody was sick. So the first store that we went to that they told us to go to, we realized that we were going to need to break in the door because nobody told us that. So they went to get the equipment. I looked at the officer that was on the truck, and I'm like, "You want me to get in there?" And I showed him that I was going to kick, and he's like, "Yeah." I said, "Okay." I kicked the door once, and the door fell down, the frame fell down, and there was a guy sleeping in the bed who jumped up, scared beyond belief, and it was the wrong apartment.
Oh my gosh!
And so we went to open the other door, and the officer was like, "No, you're not allowed to kick this one." They got the tool to open it, and unfortunately the person was deceased. And I went into paramedic mode. That's what I do, and went to go in, and all of a sudden I feel one of these. Somebody grabbed me by the back of my shirt, And he's like, no, you don't go in there. And so we talked downstairs. He's like, oh, I didn't want you to have to see that. I'm like, this is what I do with everything. So, but yeah, I mean, it's funny. I'm sure there are plenty of there are plenty of other things that I'll think of, on my way out of here later on. But that's one that's one of the funnier stories, having to kick in the door.
Great. So, Jason, we are today this episode of Shmoozin with Rabbi Aaron. Even the idea of the podcast is to have fun, to know the community, and to show how the community is. This episode is on September 11.
Mm-hmm.
So the 9/11 was and almost is, and this year are 25 years
mm-hmm.
since the 9/11. And we like to talk about that, not only about the 9/11. Then we will have at the program another two rabbis that they are going to talk about the AMIA that happened in July 18, 1994 in Argentina, mm-hmm. with the bomb there, and also we will talk about October 7 in Israel 2 years ago. So when we are talking about 9/11 or the AMIA or the October 7, there is something that really make me think a lot, and is how is the resilience and how the people reconstruct the life after the tragedy or after the terror. So let's go to 25 years ago, and let me ask you, where were you on September 11, and what do you remember from that day?
Well, I wasn't a fireman at that point. I was actually selling insurance. I remember being in the office, and somebody ran and grabbed us saying, hey, a plane just hit the World Trade Center. And so we all ran into the conference room and we're watching the TV, and just in disbelief watching what we're watching. And then a short time later, we watched the second plane live. The second plane hit the second tower. And it was unfathomable, because at that point we absolutely knew that this was not a mistake. And it was scary, because then we're hearing about the other crashes, the one in Pennsylvania, the one that hit the Pentagon, and it was overwhelming. I also knew that my father-in-law at the time was supposed to be flying out of Boston that day, which is where one of the planes originated.
Yeah.
So that scared me. That was my first call, was to my wife, and asked her, hey, where's your dad? And so she ended up tracking him down and finding out that he was safe. It was before he was flying. So and the world came to an end. There was no flying anywhere for a few days. And I remember just having this sense of wanting to do something, wanting to help. But like I said, I'd been a volunteer firefighter many years before, but I wasn't associated with the fire department or anything along that line. I wasn't a paramedic. The only thing I could do, the only thing that I could really do, was just roll up my sleeve and give blood. And that's what, there was a huge push for that. So I stood in line and waited and gave blood. And I think that was really kind of the turning point for me anyways, as far as deciding that I'd always wanted to be a firefighter, but never thought it was a reality, a real possibility. But that was kind of when I made the decision that, yeah, this is something, this is what I need to be doing.
Great.
And,
so what do you think, or what moment of resilience in New York after, in Norfolk, okay, here, after 9/11 stuck with you the most, or like?
So I was actually living in Virginia, in Rhode Island at the time.
Uh-huh.
you know, I don't know of resilience necessarily in Rhode Island, but I remember the sense of patriotism, and everybody was waving a flag, and everybody was we all put our differences, everybody put their differences aside, and the only thing that mattered was taking care of each other. You watch the videos, you know, I'm sure, you know, this is going to be viewed on 9/11, right? This is when all day long you're going to see on the news, you're going to see the events of 9/11. And one of the things you'll see people just dragging other people, running with them, protecting them, helping them, carrying them. And that's, people were very selfless, obviously very afraid, but you know, it was just a time of just coming together and just figuring out what the next right thing to do was.
Great. And you know that you was the person who told me about October 7th, because
Yeah.
I was at the service, in the middle of the service on Shabbat, and I am not using my cell phone or TV or any electrical devices, and I was at the synagogue, and I remember I was in the middle of the service, like the Torah service.
This was before the Torah service. And I think I came up during the Torah service because somebody else was leading it.
Yeah.
And I got in your ear until.
Yes, and you told me about the Torah service.
Just for the record, though, I was not on my cell phone either in
Yeah.
service. You know.
No, of course, but
So I was standing up in front greeting people, and Joel and I were talking, and April walked in and said, "Did you hear?" and told us what happened, and it was like, oh, okay. My initial thought was, oh, it's just another thing that happened in Israel. You know, having never been there, I was just like, okay. And then she's like, no, this is different. And she said, you know, Bibi's declaring war. I was like, huh? And so at that point, all honesty, I did pull out my cell phone, as did the officer that was there. And I won't throw anybody else under the bus. I'll just me and the
tell me,
officer.
just to make you feel more comfortable. After the service, I took my cell phone because my opinion. Let me explain to the audience that if someone needs me or if I can help someone during Shabbat, during any festivity, I am going to use my cell phone. I think in the future, in 120 years, when I will meet with the big boss, I will say, hey, I need to help somebody else. Okay, usually I am not using my cell phone, but at this moment I need to know what happened, because if I need to help or what I can do. And I remember that many different kind of thoughts came to my mind. And I remember that I arrived home and I told Pachi, my wife, I need to go.
So it's funny that you say that, because Joel. So after April told us that, we pulled out our phones and we were looking. Joel and I were talking, and like I said before, I've never been to Israel. And I looked at Joel and I said, won't it be ironic if the first time that I go to Israel is because of this, and I end up on the back of a fire truck?
Mm-hmm.
As we know, that's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
2 weeks later, I was on a flight heading to Israel to ride a fire truck.
Yeah, and how did you decide to go?
Is my wife gonna see this?
Yes.
So, in all honesty, so it felt very similar to the way that I felt on 9/11. It was almost a mirror image of it, except now I have a skill set. Now I have the ability to make a difference and to be able to help people. And so that there's an organization I belong to, Emergency Volunteers, and you know, so we have a relationship with Israel, and we train together, and you know, so that we're familiar with each other. Well, I had never trained with them. I hadn't gone to Israel, like I said. But it was an organization that I had started looking into, had corresponded with them, they'd already cleared me and all that kind of stuff. Well, it turned out that I knew that this is what I needed to do, because like I said, I had that same feeling of that I had on 9/11, and I was just pretty sure that that's where I was going to go. And I came home and talked to Brandy and told her that this is what I'm going to do. I didn't quite pick up on her nonverbal cues because I was wrapped up in my own emotion, but it was very scary for her. And I didn't really take that into consideration. I did take into consideration my kids, because they're kids. So, you know, I kind of thought that there might be some fear there, but I didn't think my wife was going to have that same fear or more of a fear. And so by me trying to be selfless, I was almost selfish. And you know, you and I have spoken, you know, about this, and there have been opportunities for me to go back, but I couldn't do that. I couldn't do that to Brandy again, because it was a very difficult 2 weeks for her while I was over there, and you know, so, but it is what it is. It was an experience like most people will never have, and you know,
So after that, can you share one story of resilience you witnessed while you were there?
I can share a bunch, but so it's funny when we got there and we got to the fire stations. So we all flew in from different parts of the country. We got to the training center and got the briefing and all of that, and then we split up and went to firehouses. There were 4 Americans in the firehouse that I was in Lod, and watching watching all of the Israelis, it was like watching 9/11 happen. It was surreal, because everybody had their cell phones out and they kept watching video over and over and over again, the same way that we did, watching the towers come down, watching the Pentagon burning. It was the exact same thing, and they all had this sense of coming together, and we're just going to go get these. I won't use the words that they used, because I don't remember them in Hebrew. But you know, and you know, so it was very much. It was like watching 9/11 from an outsider standpoint, and it was really interesting to see. You know, and then the way that they all came together was very similar to the way that we did it in 9/11, and everybody had everybody's back. You know, everywhere you went, you saw Israeli flags flying. Again, I don't know how much of that, from what I've been told, a lot of that exists on the regular, but even more so then. So
Great. So this is really interesting, because come on, it's I am still thinking every single day about what's going on there, and I don't like to enter on politics thoughts, because I am a non-political guy. This is not the point. My point is that this is something that makes me think a lot, and is how the society they helped to rebuild the space, because even Pachi didn't give me the opportunity to fly on October 8th. I went to Israel some months after, and when you arrive there, and I promise that I will take you to Israel, to the hotel.
you already did.
Yes.
I remember.
Yes,
Okay.
I did, but through the phone.
So let's just give a little bit of context here. So I think I'm the only Jew to go to Israel for the first time for 2 weeks and never step foot in Jerusalem.
Yeah.
Or any place else for that matter.
It's crazy.
I was there working. I didn't get to do any of the touristy stuff.
So
you know?
I promise that I'm going to take Jason to Israel, but you know, this point of rebuilding the space, the city, and also the mind of the people. This is very, very intensive. It's very, how to say, very deep on your soul, you know. So here is something that I like to ask you, and I don't know if you have any answer for that. Do you see parallels between 9/11 to October 7, and if you feel that are different? Not talking about the terror, talking about the people, the community, because okay, the economy is different, but we are seeing, in my opinion, we are seeing many same things happening. So what are your thoughts?
Sure. So I would agree. I think there are a lot of similarities. You know, like I mentioned, that it was interesting to watch the Israelis in the way that they felt, and you know, having conversations with them, and again, it brought back emotion from what I felt on 9/11, but on a much smaller scale, but actually a much larger scale. You know, when you look at the amount of people that were injured and killed compared to the size of the states, you know, so you know, it was 3,500 people that died on 9/11 and what, 1,200 you know, on October 7th. The difference is that the entire state of Israel fits inside of New Jersey, and well, the U.S. is the U.S. So so when you look at the parallels there, it's a much larger scale, and seeing people, everybody knew there was a separation of maybe two. So everybody either knew somebody that died, or they had a friend or family member that was related to somebody that died. So so there was no, like, I didn't know anybody that died on September 11th. I didn't have a connection other than being an American. But there, it was very real to them, because it was if it wasn't somebody that I personally knew, it was somebody that you knew and was special to you, and because we have our relationship, it hurt me more, because does that make sense?
Yes, it's what many people told me when I went to Israel last time. Many people asked me, "Hey, do you have family there?" Yes. Really? Yes. 8 million brothers and sisters. That even I don't have really directly relatives, but I have 8 million brothers and sisters living there. So it's awesome. Look at that.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
one. So
What are they called?
Hey,
yeah, right. Okay.
So tell me, what, from your perspective, what was or what is the role that the Jewish community, both here and in Israel, play in the rebuilding of the society, the space, the city, the country?
So I think it's like most things, you know, right after something happens, there's an outpouring of support, and everybody wants to get involved and wants to help. And I think as time moves on, a lot of that starts to die down. When you look at the situation in Israel now, I mean, it's, without getting political, like, I can tell you that personally, my heart is split in two. And one side, I'm like, just get them, you know, kill, you know, everybody that was possibly involved. And the other half of my heart is like, there's innocent people that are being affected here, and what's different between that and the terrorists, you know? And I have that conflict internally, as I think many of us do.
Yes.
And you know, unfortunately, it's turned into a political battle, as many things do. And I think when that happens, a lot of times we lose touch with the fact that these are lives, you know, on both sides of it. You know, just because, you know, somebody is living in Gaza doesn't mean that they're a dirtbag. You know, just because somebody happens to be in a hospital where the dirtbags are hiding, you know, doesn't mean that they should be put in danger because we're trying to get to them. But at the same time, we need to get the dirtbags. So it's like it's a catch-22, and I think a lot of people struggle with that, and so I think more and more in the States, we have more, and especially younger people. You know, at least when I grew up, it was more of, if you were Jewish, you were a Zionist automatically. Like, it was just automatic. And again,
Proud.
What was that?
To be proud.
Absolutely. And I think October 8th, that was true. And October 15th, that was true. And then, like, somewhere November-ish, it started changing.
Yeah.
I guess it was actually October-ish, it was changing. And I remember somebody that I was with was telling me that you know, this was going to turn into this huge anti-Semitic pushback in the States. And I looked at him and told me it was crazy. I was crazy. I was the one that was wrong. Unfortunately, that's, you know, and I don't know what that answer is, but I think when you have that, when you lose that connection and you don't stand together, it makes things that much more difficult. And like I shared with you, you know, I was on a cruise a couple of weeks ago and had to say Kaddish for my father. And, you know, I always make a point when I go on a cruise to always go to services Friday night in case somebody has to say Kaddish. There were a ton of Orthodox Jews on this cruise, and you know, the ship provided sidurim that were put out by the Reform movement, and somebody started bashing and saying that they're not really Jews and all that, and I just looked and I was like, you know what, I can't be part of this. This is not who I am as a person. You know, I don't care what your personal beliefs are, but I'm gonna go and support you so you can
Support me.
Right. And I felt like I was an outsider because, and I don't even think any of them realized why I walked out, why I left. But so if we do that to our own people, you know what, I don't know. I think it just makes it more challenging when we don't try to stick together in that situation, in a situation like that. Rather than finding our differences, we need to find our commonalities and try to, you know, hinge off of those.
Yeah. So Jason, last question. If you were speaking to someone who feels everything has collapsed in his life, in their life, what piece of advice would you give them? In a sentence.
From everything collapsed from?
Yes. After 9/11, after October 7, after we can see even in Israel the war is still happening now, and we have anti-Semitism, and we have a war around the world. But when we see that they or us, we can rebuild, what are your advisors for these people who feel that we are on the end of the tunnel and we cannot see the light?
Yeah, I think that's just life in general, right? We go through these ups and downs, and we hit these places in our lives throughout the course of our life where it's just like you said, you feel like there's just nowhere to go but down. You can't do anything, and somebody comes up and kind of puts their arm around you, and you walk through that, and pretty soon you forget that that's where you were at one point, until somebody else that you know is in that place, and then you remember back that, hey, wait a minute, somebody kind of lifted me up, so now I got to lift them up. that's the key to it, I think, is that we as people, not just Jews, but we need to spend more time trying to lift each other up and trying to be there for one another. And if we do that, if we continue to have that in mind, the world would be a better place because of it.
Totally. Jason, thank you very, very, very much
Thank
for
you
this
for having me.
interview. These are kind of my crazy ideas, but you know that. So
I love your crazy ideas.
So thank you very, very, very much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Hey, nice. Was really, really, really nice to have all three guys this episode with us. Jason, the firefighter, Rabbi Yoni Warren at the Navy, and Rabbi Marcelo Bolakov in Argentina, in Cordoba. Three very huge friends. Let me tell you some things before ending. Remember that on September 22nd, in 10 days from now, 6:30 p.m. at the Temple Emmanuel, we will have the high holidays. We will start Rosh Hashanah, and then obviously every single day at night, 6:30 and 9 a.m. the tefillot with the Tekiot Shofar and the Torah readings, and an amazing and incredible time to spend together. And remember also that if you like to be part or participate on the second night dinner for Rosh Hashanah, go to the synagogue until Monday. That Monday it will be the last day to do your RSVP. And Yom Kippur, remember that it will be October 1st, 6 p.m. with the lighting the candles, and on the 2nd, October 2nd, we will have Yom Kippur 9 a.m. with Easter and all the things. So for the end, let me tell you a story. You know that the rabbis like to tell stories. There is an old story from India about a water carrier who had two large pots. He carried them every day, one on each side of a pole across his shoulders. One of the pots was perfect and always delivered a full portion of water. The other had a crack, and by the time the water carrier arrived home, it was only half full. For years, the cracked pot felt ashamed of its imperfection. One day, it spoke to the water carrier. "I'm so sorry. Every day you work so hard, and yet I fail you. I only deliver half of what you bring." The water carrier smiled and said, "Did you notice the path we walk every day? Flowers bloom only on your side of the road. That's because I planted seeds there, knowing your crack would water them. For years, I have been able to decorate my home with these flowers and share their beauty with my family and neighbors. Without you, without your crack, the world would have been less colorful." Today, like that pot, sometimes we feel broken by tragedy, fear, or loss. Our communities have endured AMIA in Argentina, 9/11 in New York, October 7 in Israel, anti-Semitism, war, and pain. But even through our cracks, something grows. Flowers of solidarity, courage, and hope. Resilience is not about never breaking. It's about allowing even the cracks to give life. So, as we end this conversation, this second episode of Shmoozin with Rabbi Aaron, let's carry that message and that image. Even from our cracks, we water the world. From pain, we grow beauty. And from brokenness, we bring life. That is the Jewish story, the human story, and the reason we keep working forward together. Thank you very, very, very much for being with us this second episode. Let's meet again on October 16th, 10 a.m. on YouTube and on Facebook. Please follow us that you can receive all the information for the next podcast. And also, please enter to the website of Temple Emmanuel, www.WWDBTV.com, to know all the activities and all the things that we have prepared for you for the high holidays that are coming. My friends, Shana Tova Umetuka, all the blessings for you, an amazing new and sweet year, and I hope to see you soon, also at the synagogue, and also next episode on October 16, 10 a.m. A huge, huge hug to all of you. Shana Tova Umetuka.